If you're still in bed, unable to sleep, and happen upon my video, all I can say is, you've really done it again today, buddy. If I'm not mistaken, your left foot is probably resting on your right one. If I'm right, you can admit I'm impressive. If I'm wrong, just pretend I didn't say anything. Enough with the nonsense, let's start tonight's bedtime story. As the new year approaches, and after a year of hard work, Mike finds himself with hardly any savings. To avoid being questioned by relatives and friends back in his village, Mike decides to take his beloved dog and retreat into the wilderness. Along the way, Mike is captivated by an ancient tree in front of him. After centuries of relentless decay, it is left with just a crumbling trunk, the inside already rotted. To transform it into a temporary shelter, Mike first gave the old tree a sort of exfoliating treatment. With years of experience in exfoliation, he managed to clean it up quickly. The tree seemed quite satisfied with Mike's craftsmanship. Considering the small interior space of the shelter, he then cut a nearby dead trunk in half. It was just right for expanding the space of the shelter. He then used iron nails to secure it on both sides of the ancient tree. This way, the interior space was also expanded. The ever-meticulous Mike then gathered some stones and arranged them in a circle. Next, he filled the middle with crushed stones. He then gathered a large amount of soil to fill the gaps between the stones. To make it look even more beautiful, he added some moss for decoration. Then he embellished it with more stones. Constructing the roof was quite crucial. First, he cut a piece of wood with a saw to use as a horizontal beam. Then he secured it in place. Next, he found some long sticks and placed them on the beam. This created a downward slope. This way, rainwater can flow down the roof. Then, he secured them with wild nails. The aesthetically minded Mike then found another stick to bend. He then sealed the edges of the roof eaves. As a seasoned wilderness survival expert, the roof capping is not to be taken lightly. He sourced some high-quality yellow clay and mixed it with mountain spring water from 82. For Mike, this still wasn't enough. He then gathered some dried grass, crushed it, and mixed it in. Thus, he created the strongest makeshift concrete in the wilderness. He then spread this prepared mud over the roof of the shelter. This would provide some wind protection and insulation. Next, he cut a log into thin slices of the same thickness. He stacked them in the style of roof tiles. To enhance the aesthetic, he decorated with some moss. The excess moss was just enough to fill the gaps between the walls. This significantly improved the insulation of the shelter. Surviving in the wilderness, a shelter alone is far from enough. Of course, one cannot do without a warm fireplace. He made an opening on the side of the shelter. Then he laid the leftover wilderness concrete from the roofing on the bottom. With years of survival experience, such a simple fireplace was practically a cinch for Mike. In no time at all, it was built. The next step would be making the door. Mike chose a thick plank, gave it a thorough sanding, and began fixing it inside. With just two handles like this, a makeshift door was completed. One can't help but admire Mike's capability. Next, he used a hand drill to create 2 holes on each side of the shelter. Then he gathered wood to make a candle stand for lighting in the shelter. Afterwards, he installed the finished candle stands on both sides of the shelter. To ensure that the candles wouldn't go out at night, Mike got 2 wild glass bottles, heated them with fire, then cooled them in water. Using the principle of thermal expansion and contraction, he easily removed the bottom of the glass bottles. This way, there's no worry about the candles being blown out by the wind. Then Mike went inside and lit the fireplace. As the gentle smoke rose, so did the temperature within the shelter. To make the nights more comfortable, Mike brought in some dry thatch. He spread it on the floor of the shelter, making it a bit more comfortable to sit. In the blink of an eye, night had fallen. With darkness outside, Mike went out to light the candles. He then went inside and prepared himself a hearty dinner as a treat. Before long, a sumptuous meal was ready. Eating the meal he prepared himself, accompanied by the warmth of the fireplace. The fatigue of the day had already dissipated like smoke.